Life constantly reminds us that people enter and exit our lives. We form connections, invest emotions, and grow attached. But what do we do when those connections fall apart? How do you cope when someone is no longer part of your life, or worse, when you realize they never cared as much as you did? You might ask, how do I stop caring? Is it possible to detach emotionally without feeling like you're losing a part of yourself? This is where Stoicism, especially the teachings of Marcus Aurelius, shows us the way. The Stoics mastered human emotions, not by ignoring them, but by learning to control their influence. Emotional detachment isn't about being cold or indifferent, it's about reclaiming the ability to act with clarity and inner peace. In this video, I'll share 5 timeless Stoic principles to help you emotionally detach from someone, guided by the wisdom of Marcus Aurelius. This isn't just philosophy, it's practical advice to transform how you relate to yourself and others. Rule 1. Understand the impermanence of life. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, everything we hear is just an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is merely a perspective, not the absolute truth. When it comes to emotional attachments, we often hold on to our personal view of someone, a story we tell ourselves about their role in our lives. But the truth is, all relationships are temporary. One moment, you're close, the next, they're gone. Whether through distance, death, or the gradual loss of connection, people leave. It might seem bleak, but this is the Stoics' first rule of detachment: embrace impermanence. Once you understand that no connection lasts forever, you become more aware of the present moment. Have you ever tried holding a handful of sand at the beach? The harder you grip, the faster it slips through your fingers. This is a natural law of life. The more we try to hold on to something or someone, the quicker they slip away. In my own life, I had a friendship that lasted over 10 years. We shared everything: dreams, fears, late-night talks. But over time, things shifted. And no matter how hard I tried, the gap between us widened. The emotional investment I made felt like a chain, binding me to someone who no longer shared the same connection. It wasn't until I accepted that the friendship had reached its end that I was able to release that emotional burden. Marcus Aurelius would have advised the same, accept that things will end and you will suffer less when they do. Rule 2. Understanding attachment. Attachment often comes from the ego, not the heart. Let's break it down to the fundamentals. At our core, we are beings of love. Imagine a newborn, full of pure joy, untouched by ego. But as we grow, the ego takes control, filling our lives with attachments. Attachments, whether to people or beliefs, cloud our judgment and pull us away from our true nature. Love, remember, attachment is the ego's game, the opposite of love and inner peace. When we step back and examine our desires and attachments this way, we realize the unnecessary burden they create. Now, imagine a life guided by love, not ego. Picture the freedom of no longer clinging to outcomes, people, or status. Living from love lets you trust in abundance, truly believing that what's meant for you will come to you. This isn't about wishful thinking, it's rooted in a deep belief in your own worth and abilities. It gives you the strength to release, to see that attachments are just anchors, holding you back from the vast ocean you're meant to explore. So, how do we begin to free ourselves from these anchors? Start by acknowledging the attachment. Recognize it for what it is, a creation of your ego, seeking safety and approval. Then, shift your perspective. Realize that your worth isn't defined by this attachment. Your true self, your core, is enough. This realization doesn't happen instantly. It's a purposeful practice, a mindful decision to value your inner peace more than external approval. Lastly, embrace the idea of abundance. Embrace the uncertainty that comes with letting go, and you might be surprised by the unexpected blessings that follow. Detachment is not about indifference, it's about accepting reality with clarity and compassion. It's about staying true to who you are, letting love lead instead of fear. the path to detachment is truly transformative. It's about peeling away the layers of ego to reveal the strong, love-filled soul beneath. It's about moving forward with lightness, unburdened by attachment, ready to embrace new blessings with an open heart and unwavering spirit. Rule 3. Practice negative visualization. At first, negative visualization might seem odd or even counterproductive. Why would anyone want to purposely imagine losing something or someone they care about? Doesn't that just create more stress? As championed by Marcus Aurelius, this Stoic exercise offers a profound approach to emotional detachment. It doesn't harden the heart, but instead prepares the mind for the inevitable losses that life presents. By preemptively visualizing the worst-case scenario, you can mitigate its emotional impact should it occur. This doesn't foster fatalism or pessimism, but rather cultivates resilience and prepares you to navigate challenges with greater equanimity. Marcus Aurelius wrote that negative visualization helps train you to accept reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. He also said, "Do not disturb yourself by imagining all of life's troubles at once. Instead, when each challenge arises, face it with calm and self-discipline." In essence, negative visualization strengthens resilience. Now, imagine someone you're deeply attached to, a partner, a friend, a family member. Now visualize your life without them. Picture them no longer in your day-to-day life. How does that feel? Uncomfortable? Painful? That's exactly the point. The Stoics believe that by mentally confronting the discomfort of loss, you lessen its ability to overwhelm you in real life. I recall practicing this when my best friend was contemplating moving abroad. We had been inseparable for years, and the idea of them being on the other side of the world filled me with dread, but instead of pushing that fear away, I chose to embrace it. Each day, I would imagine life without their presence. I pictured myself going through my daily routines, spending time with other friends, and discovering joy in new experiences. By the time they actually moved, I wasn't caught off guard by grief or loneliness. The loss still hurt, but I had already mentally prepared for it, and that made all the difference. Another aspect of negative visualization is understanding that loss is a natural part of life. Everything you hold dear will eventually be gone, whether through separation, change, or death. This isn't meant to be a morbid thought, but a freeing one. When you stop expecting permanence, you no longer feel entitled to it, and when you stop feeling entitled, the fear of losing it fades away. Take relationships, for example. When most of us enter a relationship, we assume it will last forever. We don't plan for things to end. But the reality is, nothing is certain. Instead of holding on to the illusion of permanence, the Stoic way is to appreciate what you have in the present, knowing that change is inevitable. This shift in perspective can be incredibly liberating. I once had a relationship where I was always anxious about it coming to an end. The fear of losing that person consumed me. But when I began practicing negative visualization, I stopped fixating on controlling the outcome. I imagined life after the relationship, and although it was painful to think about, it helped me appreciate the present moment. When the relationship eventually ended, I found myself more prepared than I ever imagined. The true gift of negative visualization is that it builds your inner resilience. By repeatedly envisioning worst-case scenarios, you build an inner stability that life's changes can't easily disrupt. You come to understand that, no matter what happens, you will be okay. And that's the true essence of emotional detachment, not detaching from life, but from the illusion that you need things to remain unchanged to be happy. Rule 4. Focus on what you can control. One of the fundamental teachings of Stoicism, and one of the most empowering realizations you can have, is recognizing the difference between what is within your control and what is outside of it. When it comes to emotionally detaching from someone, this distinction becomes essential. Why? Much of the pain we experience in relationships comes from our desire to control things that are beyond our reach. In his meditations, Marcus Aurelius repeatedly stresses the importance of focusing only on what is within our control, our thoughts, actions, and responses. Everything else, other people's behavior, the outcomes of situations, the passage of time, is beyond our control. The more you attempt to control what lies outside your influence, the more you will suffer. Emotional detachment, then, isn't about distancing yourself from others in a cold manner, but about releasing your attachment to outcomes you can't control. When you're deeply connected to someone, be it a romantic partner, friend, or family member, it's natural to want to influence how they feel about you. You want them to care for you in the same way you care for them, but the hard truth is, you can't control their emotions. You can't make someone love you, value you, or treat you the way you deserve. The only thing within your control is how you respond to their actions. Take a moment to reflect on a time when you tried to influence someone's feelings or behavior. Maybe you went out of your way to win their affection, or you wore yourself out trying to prove your worth to a friend who never truly valued you. How did that feel? Chances are, it left you feeling frustrated, anxious, and powerless because you were pursuing something outside of your control. In my own experience, I was once in a relationship where it felt like I was constantly struggling to keep everything intact. No matter how much effort I put into planning dates, sending thoughtful messages, or being emotionally present, it always felt like I was one step behind. They would distance themselves, and I would push even harder. It became a never-ending cycle of anxiety because I was trying to control their feelings towards me. When I finally started applying the Stoic principle of focusing only on what I could control, my own actions and self-worth, I began to release the anxiety. I realized I couldn't make them love me more or treat me better. All I could control was my response, and in that moment, I chose to detach. The relief I felt from releasing that emotional burden was immense. One of the most freeing things you can do for yourself is to embrace emotional autonomy. This means understanding that your happiness, peace, and emotional stability don't rely on someone else's behavior or feelings. When you place your emotional well-being in someone else's hands, you surrender your power. You become a prisoner to their actions, moods, and decisions. Imagine being in a friendship where you always feel overlooked. Your friend no longer makes time for you as they once did, and you start feeling neglected. Naturally, this hurts, and you may catch yourself overthinking what you did wrong or why they've distanced themselves. But here's the key: their behavior is beyond your control. The only thing within your control is how you choose to respond. Do you want to waste your energy chasing someone who doesn't value you, or focus on nurturing the relationships and activities that truly bring you joy and fulfillment? When you focus on what you can control, your own emotional state, you start to reclaim your power. You no longer rely on someone else's validation or attention to feel complete. Instead, you establish your own emotional balance, unaffected by external circumstances. In my own life, there have been friendships where I realized I was giving too much power to how the other person treated me. If they were distant or dismissive, I'd feel unworthy. If they were warm and attentive, I'd feel valued. It was an exhausting emotional roller coaster, but when I started embracing Stoic principles, I consciously decided to stop tying my self-worth to how others behaved. I began focusing on nurturing my own emotional well-being, independent of their actions. This didn't mean I cared less. It meant I stopped allowing their actions to dictate my inner peace. The ultimate goal of emotional detachment isn't indifference, but acceptance. Acceptance that life is unpredictable, that people are unpredictable, and that no matter how much we wish to control everything, we simply can't. What we can do is accept things as they are, not as we wish them to be. Imagine you're going through a breakup, you feel lost, hurt, and overwhelmed by everything happening around you. Your mind races with questions. What if I had done something differently? Why did this happen? Can I fix this? These are natural questions, but they stem from a desire to control something that has already occurred, a wish to change the outcome. Instead of tormenting yourself with what-ifs, the Stoic approach is to accept the reality of the situation. As Marcus Aurelius writes, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. In other words, the obstacles we encounter aren't roadblocks, they're opportunities for growth. When you accept what's beyond your control, you stop wasting energy trying to change the past or manipulate others, and start focusing on how to move forward. During one of the toughest times of my life, I faced the sudden and painful loss of a relationship I believed was unshakable. Initially, I was overwhelmed by the need to understand why it happened and what I could have done differently. But gradually, I realized that the only way to find peace was to accept the situation for what it was, not for what I wished it could be. I couldn't change the past, and I couldn't control how the other person felt. What I could control was how I responded to that loss. Rather than holding on to what was lost, I embraced the present reality and discovered strength and acceptance. Rule 5. The path to happiness. Where does true value come from? It's a question that, when answered, can shift us away from unnecessary attachments and toward emotional freedom. Grasping this idea is especially important when the challenge is to detach from someone, a process deeply rooted in the principles of Stoicism. It's not about cutting ties with bitterness or indifference, but about realizing that the deepest companionship you can have is with yourself. True value, as it turns out, comes from within, your character, your wisdom, and how you treat others. It's easy to believe that happiness depends on someone else's presence in our lives, that our worth rises with their approval or falls with their neglect. Yet, this mindset chains us, limiting our vast potential to the whims of others. Like a bird thinking it needs permission to fly, we restrict our emotional freedom. Now, imagine realizing that the sky has always been open, waiting for you to spread your wings on your own terms. This self-reliance is freeing, showing us that our value doesn't change based on others' opinions or presence. Therefore, detachment isn't about pushing someone away, but rather drawing closer to our true essence. By focusing on personal growth, on becoming the best versions of ourselves, we unshackle from the heavy weight of neediness. It's akin to nurturing a garden. You wouldn't plead for a single flower to grow. Just like tending a garden, focusing on self-improvement cultivates an inner sanctuary that thrives regardless of external validation. We nurture our growth, much like watering plants and caring for the soil. This dedication blossoms into a deep sense of happiness, independent, resilient, and profoundly rewarding. The path to emotional detachment begins with the profound understanding that your sense of worth and completeness are intrinsic. You are whole, regardless of external validation or the presence of others in your life. Your journey is about exploring the vastness of your own potential, cultivating the freedom that comes from navigating life with independence and self-reliance. Embrace the wisdom of Stoicism. Cultivate your inner strength by focusing on what you can control, your thoughts, actions, and personal growth. This doesn't mean emotional detachment or shutting out love and connection. It's about anchoring your happiness in the unwavering foundation of your own being. Don't forget your inherent worth. You're not an incomplete puzzle needing someone else to fill the void. You are a masterpiece in its own right, ever evolving and open to embracing the beauty the world offers. I hope this video provided some valuable insights into your day. If you found it helpful or thought-provoking, please give it a like. And if not, that's perfectly fine. Your presence here is always appreciated. Finally, Do you have thoughts on emotional detachment or insights from your own experiences? We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Plus, if you know someone who could benefit from today's topic, feel free to share this video with them. Until next time, let's spread the wisdom and support each other.